Hey guys, how you doing? It's time for a brand new episode of Bid Nerds, your daily nerd on the most interesting car of the day from all the auction sites. My name's John Polnik. I'm coming to you from the Rami Studio in Las Vegas, Nevada, in Container Park, as well as my partner Michael Deeb, coming to you from San Francisco in the yet-to-be-named studio of his own. We are looking for suggestions. We're getting some pretty good ones. The Deeb Cave, the Fisting Room, the Vroom Room. Oh, it wasn't Fisting Room. I may have gotten that one incorrect.
No, it was the green.
Was that one of them? Okay.
Yeah.
So
behind the green fisting door or something like that. I don't know.
How you doing there in San Francisco, Michael Deeb?
It's good, man. What can I tell you? I'll give you a quick one. Went on the rally with a bunch of guys. You took me to the Easy show out there in Berkeley, so I've been hitting that pretty often when they have it on, I think on the first Saturday of every month. A bunch of guys there that are our group members did a drive called the Sea Rennen. But it was not a sanctioned R group drive. It's just a bunch of guys who happened to also be in the R group. So it was Sea Rennen 7. We met up in Mill Valley and went up the coast up to Sonoma and had lunch, and super fun. It was wet and rainy, which was kind of a bummer. It really did sort of put a damper on the drive. JP, I had no problem with the pace considering the conditions, but I also was wishing that it was a faster drive, like when we drive in Vegas or we drive with Ben down in the Professor run. This was not that. This was more like it was a bit of a parade, actually. Guys were really well behaved and super nice people. Unbelievable collection. There was 50 cars on the rally, all air-cooled 911s.
Wow.
That's all it was. And 914s and 912s. There were no transaxle cars, and there was not a single car on the rally that was off-brand. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. There was one modern car, and I think it was a 4-liter Cayman GTS. That was the only modern car, but it was a great group of cars, great photographs, great people. I think because of the weather, a little bit of a snooze of a drive, but the roads were fantastic, and I had a blast. Thank you. Troy San Jose was the guy who organized it. Super nice person. You introduced me to him at Lufticolt. Remember Troy with the glasses?
Oh, right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's his rally. And so Troy was the one that did it and had hats or T-shirts and decals, and it was just really cool, man. I had a really fun time. So thank you to Shoddy and Sebastian for inviting me, and to Troy for hosting. I had a blast on Sea Rennen 7. Thank you.
Nice. I got a chance this last weekend to drive Flying Hawaiian's RSR car for the Rami show.
Man. How was that?
I actually got a chance to get behind the wheel. Holy cow, that car is something special. We talk about it on the Do or Die Porsche podcast a little bit. That car is going to be available on P-Car Market of all places, coming very soon. But yeah, getting behind the wheel. Look, singers, we all know they go for $1 million. He turned down $257,000 on BAT. That was the high bid for the car, and he said nope, reject.
Wow.
He turned that down. That tells you what kind, just how much he's got into this car. It's not a singer, right? But a singer, if a singer is $1 million, and his is 300 and something or whatever, are you getting a singer for $350,000? No, but you're getting at least half a singer, for way less than $500,000. It's that good, if not better.
Doesn't his car have a 3.6? I mean, it's
3.8 Ressant, yeah.
Oh my God! So you're talking, probably 400 horsepower, I'm guessing, and it's F body light, right? So you're talking like well under 2,500 pounds. I mean, that's a recipe for a race car. I mean, that's
no. I mean,
that's
you're talking no heat, no AC, just everything is stripped. I mean, it's got nothing in it just because he's shaving ounces. You open up that engine compartment, it's just it's so clean in there, and it's just so Spartan. I love it. There's nothing in there. It's awesome. But and you could just tell, God, everything about that car was just. Even Rami was super impressed, and he owns a 993 RS. He has a a roof 993 GT2.
Yeah.
He's got multiple 930s. Even he was like, oh my God, I really want this car. So yeah, who knows? Maybe that'll wind up in Vegas. But thanks and shout out to Flying Hawaiian Dave Kealoha. All right. Well, we are not talking about a Porsche for a change on today's episode.
We're not?
Porsche is not what's the most interesting car of the day. What is the most interesting car of the day, Michael Deeb?
JP, I have a question for you, and of course for the nerd herd out there. Is a Volkswagen, an older Volkswagen water pumper, a collectible car? We have seen with the proliferation and the inflation, the proliferation of online auctions and inflation over the last basically 2 years, JP, we've seen a couple of like hatchback cars bring a couple of dollars, and then we saw a string of cabriolets with manual transmissions and like original miles hit the $30,000 mark. Cars that were $5,000 were suddenly trading for $28,000 and $35,000. So I present to you, as you ponder my question, this 1993 Volkswagen Corrado SLC that is on Bring a Trailer right now, presented by arguably one of the best sellers on BAT, 911R, which is actually Avant-Garde up in Portland, Oregon. These guys are really good at photographing and microphoning their cars. They do a great job of curating super interesting sports cars. They're Porsche heavy, and they curate really interesting cars. They have found this beautiful condition car and bringing it to market now. So this car has 15,000 original miles, and it's black on black.
Wait a minute. What is it? You haven't said what it is.
I did. I said it's a 1993 Volkswagen Corrado SLC.
Okay. I missed it.
And so it's got 15,000 miles, and they photograph it in the studio, and it looks like a brand new car. JP, there are, as you go through the bucket and get towards the end of the bucket of like 300 photos, there's photographs underneath the car of like the drivetrain and the motor, and there's questions and comments to ask if they dry iced it because it's so clean underneath the car. It looks cleaner than a new car would look. So the car is in Portland, Oregon. SLCs, have the 2.8 narrow angle VR6 motor that makes like 170 horsepower. These cars also have the attractive 15-inch Speedline wheels. It's a 5-speed manual, front-wheel drive. There's a little video of the car, JP, and when they open the door on Volkswagens of that era, there's that little ringing sound that is in there until you fasten your seatbelt. They heard that as soon as they opened the door in the video. I heard that, and it just like takes you back to high school and or college in my case, in the early 90s, and I remember all of this stuff. So I think I was going to sneeze there. Oh my. JP, you take it away because I think I'm going to lose it right here.
Well,
anyway, really nice car, and I just feel like this one has an opportunity to break the bank because of the excellent job that 911R does bringing these cars onto BAT. This one, I think, is in for a moonshot for a value, and I wonder, will somebody pay stupid collectible money for a low-mileage Corrado, a water pumper Volkswagen? Is this going to be like sort of the first of its kind in rarefied air when this one closes? So JP, I send it back to you. What's to like and what's not to like about Corrado SLCs, and then what do you think is going to happen based on what they're going to do here marketing wise?
Yeah, I mean, these are really cool cars. I remember when they came out. I remember when the first Corrado came out, my buddy's mom got like the first one in the Northwest up there in Seattle from a good old Campbell Nelson Volkswagen. And the G, what'd they call that? What was the supercharged version?
G60.
The G60. That's right. Yeah. That car was super fun to drive. I mean, it was definitely, with the supercharger, it was significantly more poop than the 16-valve Scirocco that we were used to. So it definitely felt like a new era. It was at the turn of the decade, so you went from the 80s to the 90s, and the Corrado really represented a design language change that carried on, well into the decade. Most of the Mark III Volkswagens are pretty darned ugly. The Golfs and the GTIs and the Jettas are just kind of awful. But in the Corrado design, I think is really holding up well. The interior is just, I mean, look at that in black. That is just a really nice place to be. That steering wheel brings me back. It's funny you mentioned that the sound of the door chime. I want to hear that because I know that would definitely bring back some memories. When they introduced the VR6 in this car, it was definitely a game changer. It was a much bigger deal going from the G60 4-cylinder supercharged engine to the SLC VR6 than it was going from the 16 valve to the G60. It was just a, the other one was just basically slapping a little supercharger on the old engine. This was just a sea change. Everything was different now. Okay, we're talking about 6 cylinders, but still a Volkswagen, front wheel drive. I mean, if Porsche ever made a front wheel drive car, and we know that Porsche and Volkswagen over the years have worked together on cars like the 914 and stuff. But those cars, Volkswagen and Porsche were very similar in a lot of ways back in the air-cooled era. But once they went to water pumpers, the difference became much bigger. The 944, there was talks of making that a Volkswagen, and it wound up just being all Porsche. But again, Porsche rear-wheel drive. I think that was probably, I have no data to support that a big reason why the 944 wound up being a Porsche instead of a Volkswagen is because it was rear-wheel drive. Maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know. It seems like it probably would, because all Volkswagens from that era, once they went to water pumpers, were front-wheel drive. And that's a question for the know-it-all Jason Camissa, because he always has all that history. And stuff, and there was, I think, a big Audi tie-in, right? Didn't the original 924 use an exactly.
Audi lump, right?
So. What was the Quantum, the Volkswagen Quantum? That was an all-wheel drive car, from the 80s era. But yeah, back to the Corrado with the VR6. Again, if Porsche were ever to have made a front-wheel drive car, I think this would have been it. It was finally a Volkswagen that felt like it had real power. Finally, a Volkswagen that kind of stood out. Finally, a Volkswagen that really, all the touch points in this car just felt like high quality. And it was just an absolute joy to drive. But unfortunately, a lot of the Mark III kind of gremlins were also present in this car. A lot of electronic issues, sunroofs that absolutely just eat themselves, cannibalize themselves, plastic gears and stuff like that. So maintaining these things was definitely a challenge. And speaking of cannibalizing, the VR6 Volkswagen, though it was kind of the top of the line Volkswagen at the time and had a lot of more power than pretty much any Volkswagen had, it was competing with some heavy hitters in the market at the time. I mean, you had the RX-7, the Mark III RX-7 at the time that was like 300 horsepower. You had the Nissan 300ZX Turbo that also had somewhere around 300 horsepower or more. So this car's impressive power was really not enough to be competitive with what the Japanese were offering, and the Corrado was more expensive than either of those other two aforementioned cars. So the Volkswagen really, it was just diehard people that were buying these, and it made it pretty tough for Volkswagen to continue on. On top of that, they were still making a GTI. And so that's where the cannibalism really comes in, is Volkswagen sitting there going, well, we make a GTI, and then they started stuffing VR6s in that car too. Why are we still making this completely other? It just didn't make sense, and the Corrado was doomed, and there was nothing that came after that would have filled in its place. They decided to make a Phaeton instead.
Yeah, a head scratcher by Volkswagen. If they had left the GTI a 4-banger and the Corrado a 6, I think that they would have continued to define themselves as different, but instead, same platform, same engine choices. So Corrado really, all it stood for was fastback, right? Instead of a notchback. It's still a Mark III, but
from an assembly line point of view, it's a hell of a lot easier to make GTIs with a big engine than it is to make another Mark III with completely different body panels and stuff. A different. I mean, it's just like the economy of scale just was not working, and they just weren't selling enough. And they weren't selling enough of them, and they just couldn't charge another penny more because they were having their lunch handed to them by the Japanese with their big turbo stuff.
Right. And the Corrado is essentially the G60 that predated this car was essentially the evolution of the Scirocco, right? I mean, it was that idea.
It was I mean, it was actually more of an evolution of the Mark II because it's a Mark III platform, so I think that's called S3. The Scirocco, even the Mark II Scirocco, was actually an S1.
It was on the Mark I.
The Mark. Yeah, so Scirocco was really behind, and yes, so do you know? So Corrado means.
It's a wind. They're all named after winds.
The Scirocco was like a desert wind, and the Corrado, I want to say, was like a spinning wind or something. I don't know. This is help us out in the comments below. Somebody knows out there. I used to know, but I can't remember. But this car passed wind, unfortunately for Volkswagen.
Yeah, I was under the impression that all the winds are regional, right? So there's the Bora and the Ghibli, and because the Volkswagen Golf or is it the Jetta in Europe? They call it a Bora. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, but it's just a different wind. So Corrado, Scirocco, they're all named after winds, and all the winds are regional because like the Mediterranean Sea, parts of Europe, through Africa and South America, there are all these different winds, and that's why Volkswagen got all their namesakes back in the day. I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. So, all right, so this really is a nice one.
Let me talk about this car for one more second, JP. Somebody treated this car to coilover suspension, and it also has Borla exhaust, and then if you open up the hood, there's some new speed ignition wires and some things. So there's a couple of tasteful upgrades on this car. This car is super dialed in. The comments on the car are fantastic. I read through some of the early comments, and people are just, it's the photos are delectable, right, JP? And so they're talking about, thank you for giving me fresh wallpaper for my computer for the next month, because they're going to screenshot some of these photographs and use them on their computer, which I thought was really cute. So JP, are you sitting down before I give you where this car is at? Again, my opening question is, could a water pumper Volkswagen be considered a collectible? Our car basically closes in 24 hours, John, but it's already at $51,000. That's $51,000 on already 38 bids. So the big question is, it's already ridiculous money for any Volkswagen from that era. But like, how much more ridiculous is it going to go before it closes? Because we oftentimes see really great rallies or people fighting over cars as the auction comes to a close to Hammer, which will happen essentially tomorrow as we're filming this. So, John, we're really just guessing in the dark here because 51 is already an outrageous number. I'm going to say $68,000 based on nothing, no evidence at all. I think $60,000 or $61,000 is kind of the high water mark for the highest price ever paid for one of these things in the secondary market. So I'm just going to put like another $5,000-$6,000 on top of that number, because I think this is the one that's going to reset the high water mark for a Mark III. So JP, I send it back to you at $68,000 and remind you that it's already at 51. What do you think is going to happen when the hammer falls?
Whew, that is a tough one. This car only has 15,000 miles. That's really, really low miles. It'd be one thing if this car had, 50,000 miles. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to remind you, remember we saw that GTI 16 valve 2-liter that was stunning condition, and didn't that car bring like $89,000?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for stealing my take. That's exactly where I was going. That car had 50,000 miles on it. That was a Mark II. I think Mark IIs are generally more sought after than Mark IIIs. People just don't really like Mark IIIs, but the Corrado is an exception. We've never seen a Corrado go for much more than 20 grand. We've talked about that Japanese market one that was really cool with the 16 valve in it instead of the G60, which is the one I would rather have out of all of the ones that we've seen. But a 15,000 mile car in this kind of condition from this kind of seller in this colorway, and all of the things, if a Mark II GTI with 50,000 miles on it in basically the same condition is going to bring 80 plus, why wouldn't this thing? So I'm going way over. I'm going to say $80,000 and
Wow.
say that there are going to be some people that are going to chase after this thing. And the biggest shame about this car is that I think this thing's going to get put away. I think whoever gets this is a museum class car, because you're just never going to find one of these with,
Agreed.
1,500 miles. These cars, on the used market have been very inexpensive for a very long time. So to find a time capsule like this one, this car is destined for a museum. Maybe our friend Bradley Brownell over at the Ohio, he runs the Cleveland. What's the
yeah?
The
It's like
museum there.
it's like the train, steam train, and like boat and aeronautical car museum.
They just sold an RV for around 50 or 60 grand, so they've got to be looking at this going, yeah, we need this car. So somebody call Bradley
Absolutely.
Brownell over there and tell him to buy this car.
Yeah, if you're watching on the show,
I'd sure
it's
love
too
to
late.
drive it though. Yeah, I'd sure love to drive this thing and own it. But I would feel bad buying this car and driving it, because I just don't think there may not be another one of these in the world. I don't think Volkswagen has one of these in their basement anywhere. That's it.
That black interior, I want to be in that interior.
Yeah.
I really like the inside of this car. Is
Always
really nice.
loved that dish wheel and that the dashboard, the way it's kind of flat and then concaved. It's so jet fighter pilot without getting gimmicky, like the
Supra.
the Japanese. They just went way over. Like, dude, it's not an F-16, it's a freaking car. Where this Volkswagen, it's just a nice minimalism amount, all the right amount of things, just enough without going too much. Love it. Even though half those buttons probably don't work.
Was there ever, because I never owned one, John, and I know you were, this was right in your wheelhouse back in the day. Was there ever something you could do to correct that torque steer that these cars were famous for, especially with the VR6s? You just had to live with it.
Nope. I mean, that's just all there is to it. It's front wheel drive Volkswagen. Still a ton. That torque steer is fun though. I mean, once you understand what you're dealing with, it's kind of like, I mean, for real though, it's like the propensity for a Porsche that wants to get tail happy because it's got so much weight in the back. You just learn how to drive it, right? Trailing throttle, oversteer, and all that kind of stuff. Torque steer in a front wheel drive Volkswagen, especially one like this that has all that kind of power. Oh my gosh, it's such a blast.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
Good
I can only
times.
imagine you spill your latte,
Yeah, going into a corner in three wheels is a good time. Anyone who has a Mark II or Mark III of that era and has driven it hard knows three wheels. All right, guys, what do you think the results of this immaculate, beautiful VR6 Corrado? What's going to happen here? Let us know in the comments below. Now's the time for you to lock in your bids and see how they stack up to the bid nerds who know nothing. And we are about to prove that right after this. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you've got to call our friend Steve at Godden. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. All right, guys, welcome back. It is the future, and what a future it is. Is all I gotta say is Wait, what happened? What happened with this little this Corrado? I don't quite get it.
JP, our friends at Avant Garde put up this 1993 Volkswagen Corrado SLC with just 15,000 miles. The car looks brand spanking new in these studio shots. The shots are probably better than the original brochure that you were peddling back in the day when you used to, work around the Volkswagen brand. Super nice car, VR6, 5-speed, the whole shebang. JP, I thought this car was going to break the bank at $68,000. You took a massive over and said $80,000 based on what we've seen. Some very interesting Mark II, particularly that GTI 2-liter 16-valve that brought, what was it, like $89,000. You thought this might be the Corrado to do the same. It didn't happen. JP, the car sold, but at just $51,000. And what's interesting is that's what the car was when we were covering it. It didn't get another bid, which means unbeknownst to us, while we reviewed the car last week, somebody had already thrown the knockout blow and this car went no further. It did sell, but on just 13 bids, and didn't get the close or the frenzy we thought, because essentially this car didn't get another bid in the final 48 to 72 hours. That's interesting. That's very interesting. So as I thought it was worth close to 70, and you thought the car might bring 80, again, we're speculating here. Do you think that at $51,000, this Volkswagen wound up being a good bargain?
I guess not. I mean, honestly, Corrados and Scirocco's and stuff like that, typically they're not in good shape. So when we see something really nice, we expect it to go a little nuts, and we've seen some craziness. But, I think it just goes back to Corrados they don't have the wide appeal that something like the GTI has. The GTI has such a wide appeal to all the old Volkswagen heads, whereas this is still kind of niche, I guess, even within the Volkswagen world.
That's so strange. It's a good take, but it just sounds so weird. Like, really? Like the Volkswagen guys don't like the cool Volkswagen? Like, why not?
Well, I mean, we got to back up, right? We're comparing this to that GTI, and that GTI just wasn't as nice as this car. Yeah, but this is still more money for any Corrado ever since they've been new. I mean, this is still huge freaking money for a Corrado. Have we seen any Corrados pop up? We've seen some really nice Corrados over the last year or so. I'm sure we brought up before the break that Japanese market one, the 16 valve one. And that one came up again recently and still didn't do much. I think it did 20 or something like that, maybe a little more or less.
And like 16 or 18 the first time, and one of us should have bought the damn thing.
Right. And here it is. This car did well over twice as much as that car. So this is still a smashing success. I'm sure Avant-Garde, the seller, I mean, obviously their reserve was like, all right, it's either do you think it's possible that they lowered the reserve in the last moment?
That's a good question, because it didn't get another bid. I mean, how long does it take to remove a reserve? 30 seconds. You have sat there
and watched your own auction. I've had the same thing. Where we sit there and go, all right, boy, the thing is, all of your auctions have had action at the end, right?
Sure.
I've had weird experiences with most of my auctions. Very few of them have had big action at the end. And, like I've had an FTS, right? In that moment when you're sitting there and nothing's happening and you're like, oh, everything happens last 10 minutes. And you're in the 10 minutes and you're hearing crickets. Everything happens last 5 minutes, right? Yeah. I hear a dog barking 8 blocks away. And I live in a, 20 store, or I'm on the 20th floor. This is and then you're like, oh, the last 2 minutes, something's going to happen. And it doesn't. It's just like, holy crap. In that last 3 minutes, you're going, well, okay, how bad do I want to sell this? Is where it's at close enough? Am I, you have that come to Jesus moment. And the thing is, in your situation, you had where it was, right? You actually lowered your reserve in one of your situations.
Sure. Yeah. And to your credit, because you were coaching me, it was the right thing to do. Because if I hadn't, it wouldn't have sold. And I not that I didn't love the car, but I at that point, having emotionally let go of the car to bring it to market, I would have felt stuck with the car, and that would have been a bad situation.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been any fun.
So it helps to be able to either have the clarity of mind and the focus to do the right thing by yourself, or call the bid nerds and we'll do what Peak Car Market tells you to do, only we'll do it to help you.
And here's the thing though, like in my situation when I had the fail to sell, if I had there's no way in hell, yours was close. Mine wasn't. Mine was $10,000 away from what I knew a dealer would give me for the car, for that specific car. And I already knew that. I'm like, okay, well, I talked to them last week and they said they'd give me this much. And that was over $10,000 more than my auction failed to sell at. So there are some cars that just don't do well in the auction environment.
And finish that story, you literally, after we got off the phone commiserating at the close of your FTS sale or lot, you literally got in the car, you like dusted yourself off, like, oh shucks, all the way to the car, and then drove it to the dealer and got your money. Like,
I did.
Bam!
Before they got a chance to look.
Yeah. So in essence, you got your money faster than you would have gotten it had you just sold the damn thing on auction, and you didn't have to pay any commissions on that.
That is true.
I think you did
actually
really well. Yeah. So
well, I mean, I was hoping. I figured if the dealer was willing to pay me that much, that wouldn't the market see that? I don't know. Back to this Corrado. I think this is a great Corrado. Someone got an absolutely fantastic
nice
car. And we bring it up every time something goes for around $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. This or an SC. That's always our benchmark because SCs are in that same price range.
Let me ask you, like with Fiat, the national Fiat, like, the guys that park their cars on lawns, they have called the Fiat Freakout. Porsche does their annual. It's called the Porsche Parade. Yeah. What's the Volkswagen national event every year? I don't know. Like, is there one?
Yeah, there's a huge one in California. Chef would know it. Our friend Chef. If you guys have been watching the channel, you may have noticed there's a Carmen Ghia video up right now that has no commentary. It's just literally a test drive for our friend Chef that we made the video for.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful car. That car is so classic. It's really cool. Well, whatever that Volkswagen national event is, if you're the owner of this Corrado, you could go every year and take the first place trophy home.
Bug-a-rama or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Like the rabbit reunion or whatever they call it.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I mean, there it is. I guess if you want a Corrado and you come across one, the good news is it's not going to cost you that much. I mean, $50,000 is insane for a Corrado, I think. Because you're
never going to find another one with 15,000 miles on it. You're going to find, if you had a really nice one with 68,000 miles and it's super clean, you're going to buy that car. You're still going to get that car for like under $30,000.
Yep, for sure. That's the thing. This thing with 15,000 miles. That's what we keep coming back to that stupid GTI with 50,000 miles.
Yeah, but it was exceptionally clean.
Like, it wasn't cleaner than this car, and this car has a third of the miles. So it's like a really kind of head scratcher here. I don't think this is indicative of a market correction. I still think this is just huge money for Corrado. People just don't like Corrados that much. That's the only thing I think you can take away from this, because that's a lot of money. That's the most money we've seen for one of these. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Avant-Garde 911R, their photos are so sexy at the bottom, like watermarked at the bottom. They should say, your results may vary.
Right. Yeah, boy. Speaking of Chef, our friend Solomon, a week or so ago, you can watch that video about his GT4 that had high miles for a GT4, and he did really well. He sold that car, 2016 GT4 with 64,000 miles. He got $93,000 for it. And
I thought he was going to get Corrado money.
Yeah, right. Egg on face right there. And we're super happy because it was our friend who sold the car and he got all the money. Okay, great. His process, the photographer came out, took the pictures, they wrote the ad, they had that thing up. The ad was live in like a week and a half. It was crazy. The fastest I've seen a BAT ad go up. I could not believe it. Our friend Chef has that beautiful Carmen Ghia that you can go watch the video on. They sent out a photographer, and then they sent him a proof of the ad for him to proof, and it had no pictures of the Carmen Ghia with the roof down. It's a convertible.
Yeah.
Say what you will, cabs versus, okay, fine, great, you don't like cabs, but if you're selling a cab, the whole point of selling a cab is to show it with the roof down. And these idiots didn't take. Not only that, the photographer asked for extra money. He was just like a jerk. He's like, yeah, they hired me because I know cars. And his photos are terrible. And that's the other thing too, is that with BAT, you kind of have to use their photographer. Otherwise you get put in this purgatory thing.
Because your photos have to be reviewed by a separate commission, and so that just takes forever. That's the slow boat out of the Pacific.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Ocean. So I don't know. I think he's gonna have to use a marketplace or something like that by our boys over there.
I know a guy.
I know a guy. In fact, my partner Michael Deeb happens to work for those guys. So if you're looking to sell your car, give him a call. Haggerty does not sponsor this show, but Godden Classic of Las Vegas does.
They sure do. They love us.
They are awesome. Look at that. Godden Classic right there on my shirt. All right, guys. Let us know what you think of the results of this Corrado in the comments below, and we will see you guys mañana.
Later.
Get those words!